Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Figma for EDU monthly workshop. And today we're going to be talking about different ways to kind of work in Figma using shortcuts, using some of these workflows that you might not have been aware of previously. All right, so the first thing, prototype preview. Whenever you have slides or frames in Figma, so you could see here, I have a number of frames. If I was to press Shift Spacebar, I can actually get a preview of that. And by navigating left and right, I can see those slides as if they were a presentation. So prototype preview, Shift Spacebar. Okay, we're going to get started and we are going to begin. So the first batch of shortcuts that we're going to cover are workspace shortcuts in Figma. So this is a shortcut that I like to highlight all of the time. It's the keyboard shortcuts panel. I'll actually show you where this is located. If you look down over here on the bottom right under help and resources, you will see this keyboard shortcuts option. This is the shortcut you're going to see to the right of it, right? So on a Mac, it's going to be Control, Shift, and question mark. And what that's going to do is give you the ability to kind of look through some of the aggregate feature shortcuts that exist in Figma. And then as you trigger them, you will see that they change color. So the reason I like to bring this up is that this was one of the ways that I learned Figma when I was just getting started. It was a feature that I thought was revolutionary, where it kind of became this little game to learn. And I still reference it often in the event that I may forget a shortcut or I'm working on something, I'm doing a repeated action over and over again. And I'm like, what might that shortcut be? How can I remember that for this time being? Right now, I'm going to show you another one that I do like to highlight often. This is what I like to call the everything menu. If you hit Command K, Control K on Windows, when you type that in, you can search for any number of functions and features. So I have some highlighted here for you as well. So if I was to type in snap settings, right, I could turn on my snap to objects, right? Command K, I could turn on, let's say, my snap to geometry, right? Command K, and I can turn on my snap to pixel grid. I'm going to leave that one off for now. But when you type in an action, you can then see. So other actions you might want to do, let's say you want to set your entire UI to dark mode. If I say dark mode, right, the first option that's going to show up. So I type in dark, use dark mode, I press enter, and it will turn the UI into dark mode. To set that back, Command K, and I type in light, and then I can then choose use light mode. So if you know the name of a function that you may want to trigger, type in Command K and try it out. Some other options, nudge settings, set the amount of units that you can move an object. So when I press Command K and I type in NUD, right, I will see the nudge amount. By pressing enter, it will let me set the small nudge, which moves when I move the arrow key on my keyboard, and the big nudge, which is shift and arrow key. So right now, when I press down, this text box is only moving down by 1 pixel. If I press shift, it'll then move by 8. So by pressing Command K, enter nudge amount, I can then type in a larger number such as 24, and you will see that this moves up and down while I hold the shift key and the up and down arrow key on my keyboard. So once again, that everything menu is going to be your access to many of the features and functions you may be looking for in Figma. All right, somebody asked, why am I in a hurry? I'm in a hurry because we got a lot here. We got a lot to cover. So I'm going to show you some more as we dig into some more of these concepts, right? We're going to get into that. So one thing, Andres, that I would like to highlight is that this is also going to be recorded, so you will have the opportunity to see it at your own speed. The next thing that we're going to cover are window panels. When you're working in Figma, you're going to notice on the left and on the right, there are these panels here, and sometimes you need to expand beyond the panels, right? You see that there's objects that are sitting underneath those panels. If I was to press Shift and /, right, I can see what is underneath those. And as I'm working, right? Then the things that are necessary are going to pop up. So when I select any object here on this stage, while I have it selected on the right-hand side, I will then see the properties for that. Another way to manage that is the minimal view. So Shift Command /, right? And then that's going to give me that option. So Shift / hides everything, or Shift Command / will just give me the bare essentials of what's necessary, and it will float that other panel. When I have nothing selected, nothing will be selected. So this gives you some more flexibility in how your layout is working. So if you want to preview things at more of a grander scale, or if you need that UI to be readily available, right? Shift / or Command Shift /. If you're on Windows, Control Shift /. Next up, we have find and replace. Find and replace, I feel like, is one of those things in Figma that people don't take that much advantage of, but it is truly something that allows for a lot of control. So let's say I'm in this file, the file can have many pages, or even within this page, I want to find one thing. When I press Command F, right, this will change the left-hand side of the interface, and I could type in anything that I may be looking for. It can be a frame name. So if I were to type in Joanna, I will find that text field. It'll get highlighted here and will give me the ability to instantly go to it. So if I hit Command F, I can also search for, let's say, I'll type in, I was looking for dark mode, right? So I could say dark mode. Oh, did I not write dark mode? Let's say settings. There we go. So when I type in settings, it will take me to a node and it will highlight quickly what is there. And as I navigate through the left-hand side, it will take me to every instance of that. You can further refine what it is that you're looking for based off of the type of object that it may be. So it could be text, it could be frames or groups, it could be components or instances. That will give you much greater leverage to find a thing that you may be looking for there as well. All right. So navigating within Figma as well is going to be something that, like as you're working. So even now I'm navigating this space and I'm moving around things. Let's say you're working with a series of frames. So a frame is basically the container for your visuals, for your designs. You can go next in previous with N and Shift N. So here, when I select this frame, when I press the N key, it will navigate, and Shift N will navigate back. So it's basically taking that frame that I currently have, and it's going to expand it to fill the available space as I'm navigating through it. This is a great way to kind of preview and walk through a series of frames or designs that you may have. Another way to handle this would be the function key arrow forward or the function key back. Right. So what this is going to give us the opportunity to do when I press function key forward, right? What it's doing is doing the same thing. It's selecting the frame that I'm going to. However, it is not zooming in. So it's occupying the whole space. So it's not as jarring. So the N and Shift N allows you to navigate towards it. I know I realize I'm coming through like a lot of shortcuts. And what I want to emphasize here is I don't expect you all to memorize them, but the awareness of what shortcuts will be handy depending on the type of work that you may be doing. So oftentimes I don't remember all of the shortcuts, but what I do is when I'm performing a repeated action, I'm engaging in a particular type of work. Let's say I'm making slides or I'm making a linear presentation. That is going to make this shortcut that much more helpful because it's going to give me the ability to navigate those frames much more effectively. Next up, page up and page down. So we're in the Figma interface, right? We're navigating this large infinite canvas. However, we also have pages over here on the top left-hand side. Now, to navigate a page, right? If you have a series of pages, it can be annoying to kind of go up and down. However, you can use either the page up and page down button on your keyboard. So page down, page up, or you can press function up and function down, and that will allow you to more easily navigate this. I know folks who have been working in Figma for years, like 5, 6 years, that still don't know this. They'll come to me and they're like, hey, I wish there was a better way to navigate those pages. Page up, page down keys, or function up and function down. So yes, somebody mentioned they were like wondering what the difference is. If you have the command key is going to be Windows. If you're on a PC, you're going to use the control option. The one thing that I do also want to highlight regarding that question, when you go into the keyboard shortcut panel over here on the right, you will see keyboard shortcuts that are targeted for the specific platform that you're on. So as I'm navigating through here, the show hide UI is showing me the commands for a Mac. If you're on Windows, you will see the Windows specific shortcut designated for you, just like if you may be on a Chromebook. I don't currently use a Chromebook. However, if you have one, it will highlight the shortcut keys that are specific to you. So one thing that is pretty common and ubiquitous is going to be copy and paste. Copy and paste is Command C and Command V across many applications. What I want to do here is I want to highlight certain copy paste actions that are going to be unique to Figma. So when we're working here in Figma, right, these are currently vector objects. So if I was to, let's say, select these circles, right, those are vector objects. They're each individual images. Let's say I am working on a little design, but I want to share it in Slack, right? Let's say I want to share it in like Zoom, like I need to just copy that as an image and quickly paste it, but I don't want to do a screenshot. You can enable copy as PNG. So Shift Command C, Shift Control C if you're on Windows. When I select those objects, I press Shift Command C, and it might take a moment, but then you'll see copied as PNG. Then what that will do is then you can then paste this, and this will then be an image. It will be a transparent image just specifically to those bounds. Now, that's going to give you the ability to kind of paste it wherever you want. So one other thing that you might want to do, and this is really cool in Figma, this is like a copy paste interaction. So this is paste to replace. You might find yourself using this more often than you may even think. So let's say I have this rectangle in Figma. I'm going to copy it with Command C, Control C if you're on Windows. Now, when I select all 4 of these objects, each one of these objects is its own unique object. They're not grouped together. They're an individual piece. I'm going to select them all. I'm going to right click, and I can come over here and you'll see paste to replace. The reason I right clicked is I just wanted to show you kind of like where the bundling of copy and paste options are. This paste to replace or Shift Command R. It's going to be Shift Control R if you're on Windows. When you paste to replace, it actually will replace every individual selected object that you have. So notice they've all been pasted. Let's undo. I'm going to press Command Z to undo. And I'm going to show you another way that you can handle that too. So if I just selected that one, I come over here, Shift Command R. I just replaced that one, Shift Command R, I replaced that one. However, if you select them all at the same time, Shift Command R will replace them all together. Super useful. Now, let's say you just want to paste something in a very specific location. You can right click and note the option here, paste here. I could just paste it right there. So it goes directly under my cursor, wherever it is. So if I want to paste here, right, I could paste here, I could paste here, and it's going to go approximately where your cursor is relative to that option. So that was the first set on Workspace. So keyboard shortcuts, everything menu. So if you can think of a function, you're looking for it, you want to select all of a certain type of object, everything menu's got you covered. The window panels, so controlling your workspace. Find and replace is going to let you look for things in your document and give you that browsability to easily navigate it. One thing when I'm working with students, I usually have students come over to the left-hand side and create their own pages. So they'll create a page and let's say like, Joanna has a page or, Kyle has a page. Now, when I press Command F, I could type in Kyle and it can basically find the Kyle page. Oh no, it used to be able to find the pages. Oh, I guess they would have their names inside the page. It'll give me the ability to find it like within the page. So that will allow me to more easily kind of like find who it is that I'm looking for. And that way I can kind of quickly go to the page and see where they're working. Oh, is the wrong spelling. Appreciate you. Sometimes you move fast through here. Let's see. Kyle. No results in file. Did I spell it wrong over here? I did spell it wrong there. That's why. Thank you. Command F. Kyle. Bam, right there. Page is Kyle. And then it'll take me right to Kyle's page. Right. So let's go back to workshop. Command K. And I'm sorry, Command F. And I type in Joanna. I should see the Joanna page. I click on it and now I'm in Joanna's page. So that's how you know it's live, folks. That's how you know it's live. All right, so Command F, a great way to navigate and find things that are going to be in Figma. Next up, let's start talking about design specific actions that are going to just speed up your workflow. Myself, I personally find myself duplicating lots of objects. I'll be working with something and I will duplicate it. And like I'm kind of like working in that way. So duplicate is going to be Command D, Control D if you're on Windows, or you can Option and drag. What I'm going to do here, the shortcut for auto layout, Selena was asking, is Shift A. So Shift A is for auto layout. So to duplicate, I'm going to draw, let's say I draw a shape. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to choose a polygon. I'm going to create this little polygon here. I'm going to give it a color. Now, when I press Command D, it's actually going to duplicate it right above itself, right? So there's another one. So if I press Command D, it's going to remember the last action I performed because I moved it to the right and it will continue to duplicate. I'll show you that one more time. So if I have this object and I press Command D, it's duplicated another polygon on top of itself. If I move that over here to the right, now when I press Command D again, it's going to remember the last transformation I performed and allow me to continue to proliferate those as I'm pressing Command D. This is why I will sometimes say Command D, 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 D. So I'll show you this one more time. As I mentioned, when I Option drag, I can also duplicate an object. I can also perform like a little transform here, and it remembers that last transformation I performed. So now when I continue pressing Command D, it will recognize that I not only duplicated it, but I also provided that transform of adjusting its position and rotating it. I'll show you that one more time. This is really fun because I use this for any sort of kind of like rotational symmetry. So if I have a rectangle here, let's take that rectangle. I'm going to make this rectangle blue and I'm going to hold down the Option key or the Alt key if you're on Windows. I'm going to drag it to the right. I'm going to rotate it like 1 or 2 clicks. Let's align it to that little position right there and Command D, 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 D. Perfect. Look at that. How cool is that? So Command D, duplicate, very handy. You can also duplicate and rotate. When you duplicate, it remembers the like last action that you performed. So if I was to Option and drag it to the right, and then I just rotate it a little bit, as I press D, it will continue to kind of push it into that direction. So not only is it duplicating the object that I just had, but it's also performing the same action, right? The same transformation as it's moving forward. All right. So Back to basics. Frame, when you press F and you draw out a frame is a container. A container houses the things that you're working with. So if you're working with shapes, you're working with images, you can add those things in. So right here, I'm drawing in, a couple shapes. I'm working on like a little graphic, right? This frame is a container for it. When you look over here on the left-hand side, you're going to see those objects. They are contained within that frame. A frame is essentially for like a sequence of objects. Let's say you're going to create like a, like a layout, or you're going to nest a frame inside of another one. It's basically that composition. Now, a section in Figma is a bit different. A section is almost, a way to think of it is a container for frames. So whereas a frame, you can have just like a composition, a section is like a collection for your compositions. So when I press Shift S, I could draw out a section, right? We can change the property over here, right? And then what you may want to do with a section is it will be like your collection of frames. So you'll have 1, 2, 3. And then if I were to duplicate that frame, you'll see that the section will accommodate for its space, right? Command D, there you go. Now I have 2 sections, but within here, Command D, it's creating those additional frames. So what sections are a container for a way for you to organize like your sequences. The frames themselves are essentially compositions. So I'm just going to just throw in like a little section here. The section here will be named any given way. Sections and frames also have a lot to do with prototypes. When you're creating prototypes in Figma, section is a way of designating like a subsection of navigation in a prototype. We've covered that in previous workshops where we covered prototypes. We're not going to dig too much into prototyping today, but just so you know, you must need a frame to make a prototype, and a section is a way of kind of creating a sub area of your prototype for navigation. Groups in Figma come under a lot of contention. People give them a lot of crap, but a group is just a way of organizing and putting a bunch of objects more loosely together. Frame and a section is more of a structured way to do it, in that they have a defined width or height, right? You see there's a width and a height. A group's width and height is defined by the objects inside of the group. So just to abstractly represent that here, if I was to take a number of shapes, so if I create a polygon, let's make that polygon here. And if I were to, have another little rectangle, by selecting them all, right? So if I select them all and I press Command G, they are now in a group, and you'll see the group over here on the left. Once again, the main aspect of a group is like a loose association. People use it for kind of like creating quick graphics and things like that. The frame is going to have more structure. However, you can effectively swap between all 3 structures. If I come over here to the right, I can choose for this group instead to be inside of a section, right? Let me hit undo. Now I can come over here and say that that group is now in a frame. So you can alternate kind of between those options when you have it selected. I can then take it back to a group. So a group, good for kind of grouping shapes and objects to kind of represent maybe like an illustration or something that's going to be more organic. However, a frame is going to be predefined. You use a frame to be like a phone device or a tablet device. So here, when I click on a frame and I go over to the right, I'm going to see a number of different options specifically for devices, or even if you're doing like letter or tabloid, A4, Twitter posts, right? That's going to be a frame. Section is going to be for collecting those frames, and the group is going to be an object that may be inside that's more loosely associated. So there is sort of a need for all 3 of those objects. Now, if you need to break it apart quickly, so let's say you have a group here, you want all the objects to no longer have that association, right? Command Shift G, that will break that apart. And now they're individual objects once again. So I select them, Command G. Now, when I select, they all move together, right? They're in a structure. When I double click, right, I'm inside their individual. However, when I click out, they still have that association. They still move with one another. To break it apart, Command Shift G. Now they are once again just individual objects floating in that space, sitting on that canvas. Yes. So somebody asked, is a frame where you do the interface and a section is to connect a bunch of corresponding interfaces? Yeah. So if you have like a sequence of those interfaces, those would be different representative frames, and you can collect those with a section. All right. So now we've been creating these frames, we've been creating these sections, and we may note that they have names. Those names by default might start looking kind of crazy, looking kind of wild. Let's say you want to rename them. First off, you can just double click and you can rename. So I could just say frame 1. However, that can get tedious over time. So let's say you have this sequence. I can click, drag, select all of my frames, and we can rename by hitting Command R. Command R will bring up this interface with those frames selected, giving me the opportunity to rename them in mass. So I can use the current name to riff off of it, or I can just say, let's say example. And right here, I can add in a number, and I can see in a preview on how those frames might then be renamed. So example 1, 2, 3, 4, you can kind of see them over here. When I press rename, you'll see example 1, 2, 3, 4. So Command R, giving you that ability to batch rename. If you're a fan of regular expressions, you can also use a regular expression written out here, kind of like a coded expression to more granularly rename things in mass. Okay. I'm seeing a question here that we're going to be getting to a little bit later about paste or replace on an image, but have it take the shape of an object. What you want to do is you want to copy the fill and then paste the fill. We'll be talking about that in a moment. All right. So next up, select children and select parent. So we've been kind of going through Figma, right? You understand this structure of like a frame, and then within the frame, there's objects, and within this frame, there's like another frame. So this is a nested relationship where you have, think of it as like nesting dolls, where you have the one object as a container for another object, which is a container. So at times, sometimes you want to select all of the children of a frame to make a change. But you don't want to go in and manually do that. So if I select a frame and I press enter or return, what it then does is it looks at the next level down and selects all of those objects. If I press enter again, then it selects the next level of children. And then to move up, I can press shift return and it moves one level up, and shift return and one level up. So let's say I have this frame, all of those objects are inside. I want to grab them really quickly or change them in some way. I could press return, and then now I'm moving them all in tandem. So if I press return again, then I can make adjustments to just the objects inside of that frame. Press shift return and shift return out. You'd be surprised at how handy this comes in. I use this shortcut all the time. So when I'm designing things, sometimes within a frame, kind of trying to manually select things, it can get very bothersome, very tiresome. So just by pressing return, shift return will allow you to have more control. And you'll see here in the left-hand layers panel how those selections are being made. So it goes from the top level frame, press return, the secondary level, press return, the objects that are then nested within there. Big time saver. So talking about selecting objects in another, there's deep select in Figma as well. So once again, you're in a frame and I want to select I want to go as deep as possible, as quickly as possible. If you press Command key while you click, it will just let you select the object that is furthest down nested, that is sitting underneath your cursor. So when I move over here, instead of just selecting the first nested frame, I want to dig all the way deep and select the thing that is under my cursor and most nested inside. So that command click is going to give you more agency on the thing that you're trying to select. Shift return for Windows is just Shift Enter. So return and Enter key are the same ones. So command click will let you then select the nested object. And that way you can be more specific in terms of what you're highlighting. Another shortcut that isn't listed here, but when you press the control key and right click, you can see the name of all the layers that are sitting underneath your cursor. So if you were to have two objects that are on top of one another, let's say I have this black square, right? And it's going to be underneath this gray square. When I control and right click, I can then see and select the one that's underneath it. So let's rename that with Command R and type in black square. And this is going to be gray square. When I control right click, and by the way, there's an option that may inhibit you from doing this. If you have an option enabled for right click to pan, it won't work. We're working on fixing that bug. But here, when I right click control, you can see I can select the object that's behind. This is great if you're working on really complex illustrations and you're visual worker and you're just like, oh, I just need to grab that and I go over here, right? It's too much work. So you right click with the control key and you can select the object that's behind, giving you the ability to move it out of the way. Scaling mode in Figma. A lot of people have difficulty kind of mapping in Figma. So if you're new to Figma and you go to resize something and you're thinking it's going to scale, you don't understand why it's not resizing, right? So when you resize in Figma, it's a different concept than scaling, right? So when you scale something, you're inherently making it bigger. When you resize, you're resizing a frame. And you might think, well, that doesn't make sense. I wanted to do the thing that I'm thinking of. When you have a frame and you're resizing it, you need to think of it as if you're resizing a window on your computer, right? When you resize the window, everything kind of adjusts to that window. And what I'll show you here is that here I'm going to set these objects to be constrained. And I'll explain constraints in just a moment if you're unfamiliar, right? These constraints basically tell these objects how to behave when they're resizing, right? So when you resize, you have to instruct objects inside of a frame how to behave when you resize. So if I was to select that text in the middle, right, I'm telling it to set center constraints. And what that means is as this resizes, it kind of follows the middle, right? This rectangle inside of that frame, it's constrained to the bottom right. So resizing is a concept in interface design where you need to think about how are these objects going to behave when the container that they're in resizes. Now, if you want to scale, you're going to use the scale key, right? The scaling mode. So if I press K, you'll notice over here on the right-hand side, you're also going to notice down here on the bottom, right? This is the scale tool. It's the K key. You'll also notice these options over here, right? The width and the height and the scale. So as I scale, it's actually going to make the things bigger because it's a different intent, right? It's like I intend to do something different. And so here I can actually provide in a value of scaling something by 2x or 1.5x. I can even determine the alignment point by which it's going to scale. So if I want the object to scale from the bottom left or the bottom right, I can go here and type in 0.5 and it's going to scale down from the bottom right. So the scaling function is going to be a different function than resizing, because resizing is going to just try to think of objects, especially frames, as like a window. And within there, you need to think about how you're going to move those objects around. And thinking about that, there's different ways of assigning those constraints, the instructions for how an object will behave inside of a frame and resize. I'm going to select this rectangle right here, and I'm going to align it to the top right. So WASD, for those of you who are gamers, if you look, WASD, right, is like top, bottom, left, and right. So when I hold down the Option key, it's the Alt key if you're on Windows. Let me make sure y'all Windows heads out there, right, have that set. It's going to be Alt key. So here, when I hold down Option and W, it aligns to the top. When I hold Option and D, goes to the right. Option A, it aligns to the left. Option S, right, it kind of moves around. Now, when I apply that keyboard shortcut to align it, it's also setting its constraints. So here, if I hit Option S and D, right, bottom left. Right here, Option S and A, bottom left. Sorry, this was bottom right, bottom left. Option A and W, top and left. Now those constraints have effectively been set for me and it works, right? I'm able to set that. So even this text here, if I just say, I think it's Option, I don't know if there's like set for the center, but I can even like align this to the top. I could center constrain it, and it will then behave in that way. Let me make sure it is centered. There you go. And in the center, bam, voila. And then it's censored and it is behaving. So if you don't see the constraint, the object has to be inside of a frame, and it's also a an option to toggle it over here in the right. So you'll see under position, I can toggle those constraint options and then they will show up. Another thing, if you're just beginning Figma and you don't see the labels and you would much like to see the labels on these fields, by coming up here to the top right, you'll see this option for property labels. Property labels, when enabled, will show all of the property labels in your windows. When that's off, it'll be minimized. So that's more of like the pro mode. But by turning in the property labels, you will then see them show up in the interface. So yeah, when you select that, you should be able to see them. So speaking of alignment, this is another thing that like a lot of folks just don't have a lot of insight into. When you want to align many objects at the same time, let's say if I select all of these objects inside of the frame and I want them to align as a group, let's say I go to align them, right? And they're just aligning to themselves. So I have these 4 rectangles and I want them instead to align as a group to the frame itself. What I can do is over here, these alignment tools, I can hold down the Shift key and you'll see that when I hold the Shift key and I hover over, there'll be a little box around them, allowing me to align to the right, to the top, to the bottom, and to the right. So right, left, top, center, right? And so this is great if you have a bunch of loose objects like in a frame, you have a bunch of things and you just need them quickly aligned to the frame. If you're to select them and hit align, they're going to censor and align to themselves. However, if you want them to align to the container that they're in, hold down that Shift key and they will align as a group. So back in the day, people would temporarily make these a group, then align them, and then ungroup them by holding down that shift key. That's going to give you much greater control over how they're aligning within their container. There you go. So once again, to see constraints, the constraints, you have to have an object inside of a frame. If the object is not inside of a frame, you're not going to see options for it. So here, when it's inside of a frame, the constraints are there to be relative to the frame. I think somebody also mentioned that if you have the scale tool enabled, so if you press K and you see the scale options, you're also not going to see those constraints. So have an object, have it inside of a frame, and then you will see the constraint toggle. All right, so color picker here, let's say I have an object or a shape. When I press the I key, I can select any color that I see fit. Now, right now, you'll notice it's hovering over and it's showing me the hex value for the color picker. If I want to change the color model, I can press tab and I can see a different model for it. So by pressing tab, I can go from the hexadecimal value to the RGB value to the hue saturation lightness value to the hue saturation brightness value back over. So when you press select an object and you want to eye drop it from something else, you will see that show up, and then you can click and it will select it. And once again, if you want to see it represented in a different color model, just by pressing the tab key, you can navigate between those. All right, insert components. So for those of you that are working with components in Figma, Shift I will give you the ability to find things within your library, or you can also search from the community. So if I type in UI card, it will actually look into Figma's community and find examples of these components from existing files. So I can bring in a component from a community file, or if I have a library. So when you're building and working with components, Shift I is going to give you the ability to create those. So if I was to generate this as a component and press Shift I can, oh, it should have a name. Shift I. So I can say Shift I, it should be able to find it. There it is. And then I can then add instances of it. So Shift I, and I can search for it. So I could even say created in this file. It'll find the ones that are created in the file, and I could easily then bring in instances of that in. So components are going to give you the ability to make objects that are reusable. Anything that you see over here in the assets panel that is within this file can then just be brought in. Anything that's like adjusted here, they will then follow suit. We're not going to dig too deep into components, but just wanted to highlight that. Measurement. There's a measurement mode in Figma that's going to help you better understand the spacing in your design. So if I was to press Shift M, right, Shift M goes inside of this measurement mode, and it allows me to basically begin to spec out my design and see. I don't know why I don't see my measurements. Hold on. Shift M. Hold on. I probably changed something in my settings. So it's like hiding them. Show, measure. I'm going to probably just have to move one. I think I might have. Show layout guides. All right. I might have disabled something and I can't quite think of it at the moment. But within measurements, try that one more time. Annotation. Why? Let's try annotations, see if they'll show up. UI card. All right, I can see that. In dev mode, it will show the measurements that I'm creating. It should. Let's see that. It's probably a bug. Let me just hit refresh on my tab. And if that doesn't come up, I'm just going to have to file a bug, and it might just be something that's affecting me in the moment. All right, let's just go back to regular design mode and Shift M, and please work. There it is. Okay, now it's working. All right, so Shift M, and you can basically begin to see like the spacing of your objects. If I highlight something here, right, and this grows in size, you want to escape it by pressing the escape key. But when I press return, oops, let's say if I make this larger, let's say if I make this object larger, you'll actually see that that measurement is kind of like a live updating measurement. So Shift M puts you in measurement mode, giving you the opportunity to kind of quickly see like the sizing of everything, and kind of like highlight that. That will then also be surfaced if you are working with developers in development mode. You can even begin to give custom names. So I can just say card height, right? Or I can say, like 1 VW. I could type in any value that I want. So it's going to give you the ability to kind of custom type that in. So Shift M is good for documentation, and that documentation will be there. So yeah, when I can exit that mode, and hold on. I think there is how to change measurements. Just double click on it, and you can label that there. But by default, it's going to be the base units that you're working with. Annotations are going to be similar. So annotations, you'll notice it down here. When you have annotation, you could actually type in a category. So I can say there's an accessibility note, and I could say, um, make sure to use alt tags. And even within this annotation, I can add in certain properties. So any property that I may have that I feel is important, such as like, let's say the fill color, I could then make that easily viewable there. So then that annotation will show up for folks. So rulers, Shift R. When you press Shift R, you'll get these rulers that'll show up. They're basically guides that you can use in your design to make sure that things are aligned properly. You can right click on it to remove that guide. What's cool about the rulers is that they will have a global sort of unit represented with it, but once you put it inside of a frame or a section, it will then have a local value associated with it. And if you need to type in a specific number, right, you could just type in that number right there. So if you need to create guides that you want to be understood and followed by others, you can go ahead and type in those values specifically to see how they align. To remove them, I can right click and then remove those guides. By pressing Shift R, it will then hide the rulers and hide the guides. Comments in Figma are great. When you press the C key, you can leave a comment on anything, like and I could even let folks know. So I could say Joanna, right? I could write her a note. What do you think? And what's really cool is you can even leave images, right? So I can upload up to 5 images in here, and I can go into my documents, and I think I have assets, and I have coffee pics, and I'm going to grab a few coffee pics. They're going to upload in, and once that's ready, I will then have a gallery of images here within the comments. So let's say if you want something to look a particular way, or you have another screenshot or another idea, there's a whole upload for images that somebody can see, and then you can have a whole conversation within this comment. And so Joanna could even write in a response. I think she's in the file with me. You could even leave, let's see what Joanna said. She says, hello, looks great. Awesome. And gave me a thumbs up. So what's really, really cool about this too is if you want to draw an area for a comment, you can just click and draw an area. for this, whoops, at Joanna, boom, for this image. And there you go. And it leaves a comment. All right, so we are kind of running short on some. I'm going to go through some relatively quickly. For typography, type tool is the letter T. Whenever you have text and you want to edit text and it's, let's say it's nested, just press the T key and it'll let you select that text. There's 3 different resizing modes for text. So right now, you'll see that there's like single line, right? Single line will just kind of move on forever as a width. There is a fixed kind of, there's a auto height and there is a fixed box. The one you're going to be using most often is going to be auto height, but I'm going to show you that you can easily toggle between these 3. So here, if I have a fixed height, right, I want it that text box to be auto height, I can just double click on that right hand side and now it is set to auto height. If I double click on the right, that will set it to auto width. Let me undo. And if I just resize it, it'll then set it to fixed. So the behavior that you're more likely going to be doing of all of these is just double clicking here on the bottom and setting that text field to auto height. The reason that that is important is if you are working with multiple text fields, right? So let's say I have 2 text fields here, right? And I press Shift A, right? Somebody was asking me earlier about auto layout. Auto layout is Shift A. Auto layout gives you the ability to create a frame that will then grow with these 2. So if I add more text here, right, it's going to then push the other one down. If this was instead set as fixed, right, then you're going to get a lot of overlap. It's not going to work well. So the text field that resizing that you're going to want more often than not is going to be auto height. And to do so, you just double click on that bottom. That's going to allow that text field to have a defined width and continue to grow. And then really quickly adjust font size. Let's say you're tweaking font size, Shift Command, right, like greater than symbol and less than symbol, right? So here we go. I can just bring that up and down, right? Fun little shortcut key. Adjust font weight, right? Option, Command, greater than sign. Sorry. Option, Command. So, you're just kind of going in there, like you're designing and you're just like, okay, what if it looks thin? What if I go black? What if I go semi-bold? Option, Command, greater than, less than, allows you to make those quick adjustments. You can adjust letter spacing with Option, greater than, less than, as well as line height. So if I have like line height here, it's going to be Shift Option. I might have accidentally deleted Shift from my example file. So let's move this over. Why is it not moving? All right, let's say Shift Option. And the line height of the text is going to go up and down. All right, so why are these not moving? Are they put into a auto layout frame for some reason? Yeah, I'm not going to sweat it. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know. Joanna, do you have this selected by any chance? Yeah, I'm not going to sweat it right now. Okay, so a couple other things when working with text that I do want to highlight. Yeah, I see it's auto layout, but I don't know. Like there's something else that's like getting it to stick there. Okay, so here, text trim. So when you're working with text, I just want to highlight these here over on the right. Text trim, vertical trim is going to change how a text box is going to work with the text. So text trim kind of removes the additional spacing above and below. This is going to be really helpful if you're working on buttons. Hanging punctuation, when you have a quote and the quote is left aligned, you want those quotes to hang in the margin. You can come over here and enable under the details hanging punctuation, and you'll see that that quotation will land in the margin. Underline styles, you can, let's say you want to say misspelling, right? Let's say you want to design a misspelling. So when you go over here, you can choose. So go over here. I'm going to select misspelling. You'll notice underline decoration and there's underline details. So here I can actually choose how I want this to behave. I could give it like a thickness. I could even apply red. So you can have more control over those underline details when working with text. This is one of my favorite features. I could even choose to have it skip ink. So then this way it's not spearing the text as it goes underneath it. So those little adjustments I think are really powerful. All right, so there's still a lot more to cover. I'm going to show you just images and multi-edit, and we're going to kind of close out for today. Feel free to peruse the file and dig in. With images, I do want to highlight this. For placing an image, this is one of my most favorite shortcuts. Command-Shift-K or Control Shift K. What it does is it gives you the ability to add images. When I select the images from my file browser, it's going to it's going to charge up my cursor with them. And with that charged up, you'll see it here on my cursor. It's then going to allow me to place images directly into shapes, or I can add it directly onto the canvas. I'll show you that one more time. So if I was to click on my canvas, come down here and choose let's say I make a circle and a rectangle, I want to place images into those spots. I press Command Shift K. That's going to pull up my file browser interface. I can hold down the Shift key. I can select two images, and it's going to let me paste them right into those shapes. And then as I resize the shape, it makes that available. So here, editing image fills. So images are fills on shapes in Figma. So when here I'm working with this image, right? Let's say I want to copy the image that I have here over, I can select this object. I can come over here to the fill layer in the properties panel. I can Command C, copy it, or Control C on Windows, and I can paste it in. So now you'll notice that this shape has those two fills. I can remove the other one. Now that this has been applied, when I click on that image, I can see the fill and I can see a preview of the image. And what's great is if I double click on it, I have these controls. So I can rotate the image in that space. And for further control, let's say I want to edit this image fill. When I double click on it or command double click on it, right? Command double click, I can change how it's cropped within. So here's this image. I command double click. I could change how it's cropped. There's some cropping options down here where I can kind of scale it up and down, right? I can choose different options for cropping that image in that space. But something that's also really cool, when I drag this image to these corners, it'll snap. So it's going to give me the ability to recrop this image as I see fit. So if you imagine yourself working through quickly, right? I option double click or command double click. I can, change that crop, right? Same one with this one, option double click or command double click, right? I can begin to adjust and crop, option double click. I can then move this and scale this, and that's going to work. Now, if I go to change it after the fact, it might distort. So if you ever need to work with an image that's been cropped and you're like, resizing that image, you can always go back to the image fill and just change its fill type. So you can just set it back to fill, option double click, and then readjust that crop. Option double click and readjust the crop. Option double click, and I could change it from crop back to fill. And what it's going to do, it's going to attempt to fill the available shape as much as it can. And so fill modes, you can copy paste properties of those fills, double click to resize and crop mode. Also for like resizing options here, I'm just resizing from the left. If I hold down like the shift or the option or alt key, it will let me scale it from the center. You can scale it from the center using the UI down here. If at any point you want to export an image, when you come over here to the bottom right, there are export options that give you the opportunity to save it out at any different sizes. So I could change how the image exports with resizing options and color profile. All right, so last thing I just want to show before we close it out, multi-edit. Multi-edit in Figma allows you to edit things in a series of frames. So here, if I want to edit all of these rectangles across those 3 frames at the same time, if I just go ahead and select them, right, and they're named the same, it'll let me edit all 3. I can use the shortcut key Option Command A. So if I press Option Command A, it will select all matching objects within that series. It'll allow me to align them. And if I want to edit the text across all frames, so let's say I have some text at the bottom. When I press enter, I could change that and I could say, thank you. And I can edit them at the same time. And with them still selected, right, I can also decide that I want to align right and hold the shift key and align to the right and to the bottom. And then I can move them as I see fit. So multi-edit is really powerful in Figma. Once again, Option Command A. Option Command A. It'll find matching objects and allow you to edit them in tandem as you are moving. There's a lot of different additional kind of like hidden things that work really well in there, but just wanted to highlight that multi-edit, save you a ton of time. Once again, thank you all for coming today. Thank you, Joanna, for moderating. We appreciate you greatly, and we hope you have a great weekend. Take care and happy designing.